This week on Let's Talk About Mental Health, let's talk about reflection. How you can look back over the past year and learn what you need to learn in order to grow. So let's get talking. This is Let's Talk About Mental Health, a weekly podcast about mental health and well-being, hosted by Jeremy Godwin. Let's talk about mental health, because the more we talk about it, the easier it gets. Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Let's Talk About Mental Health, the podcast that's all about practical advice to improve your mental health and well-being. I'm Jeremy Godwin. Thank you for joining me. Today's episode is Let's Talk About Reflection, and this episode is going out on Monday the 23rd of December 2019. So whether you listen to it that day or a couple of weeks afterwards or whatever, this is actually a really great time of year where people sort of naturally start reflecting on what's happened over the course of the last year and where they're heading towards in the new year. We also have the added factor that it is the end of the decade and we're heading into a whole new decade being the 20s. So this is a really good opportunity, and it's as good a time as any, to have a bit of a conversation about reflection. You know, that thing that I go on and on about pretty much every single episode of Let's Talk About Mental Health. Today I'll be discussing how you can take time to reflect on your journey over the past year and the past decade, and take the time to identify the lessons that your past has to teach you as you move forward into a new year. So let's get talking. Alright, let's start by defining reflection. Reflection is the act of looking backwards with serious thought and consideration, and without judgment. And it's about considering what is working well in your life so that you can do more of that, and also what might not be working so well, so that you can then either stop it or approach it differently. Now, let me be very clear and say that reflection is not about sitting and beating yourself up over things that have happened in the past. What's happened has happened, and you can either let it control you and make you feel bad about yourself, or you can learn from it and grow. And that's the focus of reflection. It's about learning from your experiences and looking for opportunities to grow as an individual. So even though the word reflection might sound like it's about focusing on the past, it's actually about focusing on the present. In other words, it's about looking at where you are today and what has brought you to this point and place in time, so that you can then plan for the future, and more importantly, so that you can actively create the future that you want. Even though it might sound like it involves dwelling on the past, it really doesn't. The focus is on learning from the past. I think that it's important to remember that you can't live in the past, nor should you. The past has already happened, and you live here in the present. So for the sake of good mental health and well-being, your focus should be on living in the present, because living in the past is unhealthy. Now, that doesn't mean that we ignore the past, though, because that's unhealthy as well. Good mental health and well-being involves acknowledging and learning from our past, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's then about living the best life that we can here in the present and making decisions for our future that are in our own best interests. That's where reflection comes in. It's a way of looking back on things that have happened in the past in a thoughtful and objective manner, so that you can learn the lessons that you need to learn to improve your present and therefore your future. For those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, this time of year actually makes a lot of sense as a perfect time for reflection, because it's cold and the days are short. So while you're waiting for the arrival of spring and all of the rebirth that it brings, this is a perfect time of year to reflect and really think through where you're at and where you're heading. For those of us here in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm in Australia, and we're in the early stages of summer. The days here are long and hot, and although it's the complete opposite of what the Northern Hemisphere is experiencing, this is a chance for us to lean into the slower pace of life at this time of year. And while we're doing that, we can take some time to think about where to next on our journey. And that's why I think this is a great time of year for reflection. Now, I'm not big on New Year's resolutions because, quite frankly, they never seem to last. But I do tend to use this period between Christmas and New Year's Day to reflect on the year that was and consider how I want to move forward. Now, having said that, this is something that I do consciously a few times throughout the year. So it's not isolated to just simply, great, it's the end of the year, let's reflect, we're all done. I also mentioned earlier, because it's now the end of the 2010s and the end of that decade, now is also a really good time to look back on the last 10 years and celebrate your growth, as well as challenging yourself to make changes in areas of your life where things maybe aren't quite the way that you would like them to be. The most important thing when reflecting, and I'll get into the technique shortly, but the most important thing is no judgment. Let me repeat that. No judgment. You cannot change what has happened or what hasn't happened, so do not beat yourself up over it. I've done previous episodes on topics like self-talk and overthinking, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail around that, but if you are prone to negative self-talk or prone to overthinking, I would encourage you to go and listen to those past episodes. Because the last thing that I want is for you to be going through this art of reflection and then kicking off the overthinking or the negative self-talk into overdrive. Anyway, back to reflection. Reflection involves observing things in an objective manner and then learning the lessons that you need to learn so that you can make changes to your life in order to grow. So how do you do this reflection stuff? Well, there are a lot of different ways. I'm going to give you a quick technique that works for me. Otherwise, feel free to find something that works for you. My main piece of advice is do whatever feels right for you as long as you're reflecting objectively. So, set aside some time. I want you to make an hour or so for yourself and find a place where you won't be disturbed for a while. Grab yourself a coffee or tea or whatever makes you feel relaxed. Make yourself comfortable, light some incense, do whatever works for you. It's about getting yourself into a relaxed state of mind. Grab a notebook and a pen so that you can make some notes. Or if you prefer using your phone or tablet to take notes, that's absolutely fine. However, just make sure that you turn off notifications or put your device on flight mode so that you won't be disturbed. Now, all of these instructions will also be in the transcript available on the website at letstalkaboutmentalhealth.com.au, and I'll post a few things on social media throughout the course of the week as well. So, once you have your notebook or whatever you're using to take notes, make a list of the things in your life that you feel most satisfied about. So brainstorm them, and if you're not familiar with brainstorming, that simply means get them down onto paper without filtering them. The thing with brainstorming is to remember that there are no right or wrong ideas, so just get them all out. Do that for a few minutes, or as long as it feels right for you. And then once you're done with that, now make a list of the things in your life that you feel dissatisfied with. Now, my advice for you here is not just to go until you run out of steam. What I suggest that you do when you're making a list around things that you feel dissatisfied with is set yourself a timer for just 1 minute or 2 minutes maximum and only use that time to do this. Why do I say that? The reason why is because if you're prone to negative self-talk or anxiety or depression, whatever, you could wind up spending hours focusing on negative things and end up feeling just crappy afterwards. Keep it super short and focus on the big ticket things, not just the little day-to-day stuff that has already started fading from memory or will probably fade from memory in a day or two. Don't process any of the items that you're putting onto the list. Keep it short, sharp, and just simply get them down onto the list. You have a maximum 1 to 2 minutes to do this, so you just want to get them down without really thinking about it. Okay, once you've done that, first, take your dissatisfied list and look at each item for no more than 30 seconds. Let me be very clear about that. No more than 30 seconds. I'll explain why in a moment. Look at each item and ask yourself this question. What can I do about it? You only have 3 options. Your options are accept it and move on. That's option 1. Option 2, change it if it's within your control. And option 3 is let it go. That's it. There are no other options. Sorry about it. Now, when I say change it if it's within your control, I mean if it's something that you can directly control. In other words, your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. I have said it in previous episodes. You cannot control another person. You can certainly attempt to influence them, but you have 0 direct control over what they think, say, and do. So don't waste your time even trying. Now that might be hard to deal with, especially when it's a loved one like a partner or a close family member. But the reality is, nobody can control another person no matter how hard they might try. So bear that in mind. So just to recap, your 3 choices. Number 1, accept it and move on. Number 2, change it if it's within your control. And number 3, let it go. The reason why I only want you spending 30 seconds on each item is, to be blunt, I don't want you dwelling on them. I want you to follow your gut instinct, and really, if you're down to 3 options and you've only got 30 seconds to make a decision on which of those 3 options you'll apply, you're probably going to be more inclined to tap into the heart of what you're really feeling and what your gut instinct is telling you to do about that situation. If you spend too much time on it, you get into that dwelling territory, you start overthinking things. That is unhealthy, and that is not what the purpose of reflection is. So work through that list of dissatisfied stuff, maximum 30 seconds per item, and consider what you can change, what you need to accept, and what you need to let go of. Put things into those 3 categories, and then make doing that your focus moving forward. That might sound really simplistic, but you've got 3 lists of things that you can then work on over the next weeks, months, years, however long it takes. I'm not saying that because you put it on that list, that's it, it's magically done, but that is what your focus will be, is working on achieving, letting go, accepting, or changing. Okay, so once you've done that, you have a list of things that you can focus on moving forward. And now we're going to go and spend time with your satisfied list. That's that list of the good stuff in your life that you created at the beginning of this exercise. If you're satisfied, then the trick is to first be grateful for whatever it is, and then to consider how you can have more of that in your life. For example, do you love helping people and that's something that you've put on your list? Great, do more of it. Go do some volunteer work. Do something that helps people that then connects with the things that make you feel satisfied. So it's about challenging yourself to identify what it is that you're satisfied with and how do you get more of that good stuff into your life, because you can do that. Satisfaction with our life rarely just happens. It takes some effort, and it involves us choosing not to take things for granted. So one of the big things that I do in terms of satisfaction is around processing things, dealing with things while they're still molehills before they become mountains, if you know that expression. I deal with things while they're small and try to avoid them getting out of control. I am not perfect at it, let's be very clear. I've got some messed up family stuff going on, and, I've got some avoidance behaviors when it comes to dealing with the more complicated family stuff, but that's a story for another day. In terms of focusing on things that you can do to be more satisfied as an outcome of this reflection exercise that I'm talking about, you can actually look at different ways to approach your day-to-day mindset. I choose to start each day with a positive mindset, and a simple way that you can do that is with daily gratitude practice. It's not just a random new age thing that's been thrown out. In the entire field of positive psychology, it's actually been demonstrated time and time again that gratitude practice has a direct, tangible effect on mental health and well-being. And the reason why is because when you focus on the good, you then become more inclined to look for the good in situations. So I have a reminder on my phone every morning, 6:30 a.m, to do a daily gratitude list, and I stick to it. I note down 5 things that I'm grateful for, and I take a few moments with each to really feel the gratitude. And then each night as I go to sleep, I spend a few minutes reflecting on the highlights of my day, and that's just an exercise that I do in my head. So when you're reflecting, it's about choosing to think about what's good in your life and actively looking for the good, especially when you're having a tough time. So by all means, reflect on the not great stuff, but balance it with what is great in your life, because I would wager that there will be at least one thing in your life that is great. You might have to look hard for it sometimes, but it is there. Reflection is an opportunity to process stuff from your past, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's about processing it here in the present so that you can either accept it, change it, or let it go and move into your future with optimism, hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. Now, what about after you've done the reflection exercise that I've just talked you through? Well, then it's time for you to work through what you want to work through. You can create the life that you want by addressing the things that make you feel dissatisfied, so by either accepting them, changing them, or letting them go, as well as actively doing more of the things that make you feel satisfied. As always, I believe that as long as it doesn't harm anyone, including yourself, you should just go for it. You only live once, and life is way too short to waste it on feeling shitty about things or not pursuing what makes you feel satisfied and happy. If there are specific areas that you want to work on in more detail in terms of developing yourself, I've probably got a podcast episode in my back catalogue that can help you with that. Mistakes, if you want to work on getting past mistakes that you've made, listen to or read my episode on that, which is episode 2, for advice on how to work through mistakes in detail. Are you triggered with overthinking? Oh look, I have an episode on that too. Funny that, episode number 4. If you've identified that you want to work through emotional baggage, episode 7. Dealing with stress, episode 8. Setting priorities, episode 3. Resetting your life, episode 1. Taking chances, episode 5. So my point here is that you can either listen to those or read those, and that will give you more detailed guidance around how to tackle those specific areas that you might want to be focusing on moving into your future. You can find all of the episodes, both the audio and the transcript, so in other words in article versions, at letstalkaboutmentalhealth.com.au. Just head over to the episodes tab for the full transcript of every episode. I'll include a link to each of those topics in this week's transcript as well, just to make it a bit easier. So as we're nearing the end of this week's episode, I'm going to do what I always do, which is to leave you with a quote that I'd like you to reflect on. And this quote is from Soren Kierkegaard, who I think I might have used in a previous episode. The quote is, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Let me repeat that. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Alright, so when we talk about reflection, reflection is an opportunity to process through stuff from your past, the good, the bad, and the ugly, here in the present, so that you can either accept it, change it, or let it go. And that gives you an opportunity to move forward with a really clear focus around what you want more of, what you want less of, and how you're going to be working to achieve the things that you want to achieve in your life. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen and also for your support this year. Since launching in early October this year, Let's Talk About Mental Health has grown really quickly, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of you who listens to this podcast or reads the weekly posts, along with the weekly Mental Health Talk newsletter that I put out every Friday. So this is the last episode for 2019, and I'll be taking a break just for the next week, and we'll then be back with a brand new episode on Monday the 6th of January, with my very first episode of the new year and the new decade, funny that. And that episode will be all about new beginnings. I thought that might be a fitting topic for a brand new year and a brand new decade. So I will talk to you again on Monday the 6th of January. In the meantime, stay safe, look after yourself. If you are listening to this before Christmas or New Year's, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and a safe New Year. And I look forward to talking to you in 2020. In the meantime, you can find Let's Talk About Mental Health on social media, Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook at LTAMHofficial. That's LTAMHofficial. So please follow on whatever social media you use, and if you have a topic that you'd like me to cover in the future, let me know. Also, you can find more content plus old episodes on the website at letstalkaboutmentalhealth.com.au. That's letstalkaboutmentalhealth.com.au. Finally, if you liked this podcast, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review on your preferred platform, like Apple Podcasts, because that helps it to move up the rankings so that other people can find it too. Stay safe over the New Year's period and take care. Let's Talk About Mental Health. We'll be back on the 6th of January 2020, and so I will talk to you next time.